Get ready, everyone. Today we are going deep into attachment styles. They're like these patterns that shape how we connect with others.
Yeah.
We're using understanding attachment styles, how we love, as our guide today.
Sounds good.
Have you ever wondered, like, why some people just seem to, I don't know, just navigate relationships so easily,
Right.
while others just keep ending up in, like, these dramatic situations?
Yeah.
Well, that's where attachment styles come in. It's like a psychological blueprint for love.
Mm-hmm.
And it forms in early childhood, and then it goes on to influence our adult relationships.
That is a great way to put it. I mean, these patterns really do. They often get established before we even, learn how to tie our shoes. And they have this powerful, powerful impact on who we are drawn to and how we behave in our romantic relationships.
So then are we, like, doomed to repeat the same relationship patterns forever?
Mm-hmm.
Or can we, like, change our attachment style and create healthier, more fulfilling connections?
It's the question, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're going to find out today. But first, we need to lay the groundwork. Like, what are the 4 main attachment styles?
Okay.
We've got secure,
Yep.
anxious,
Uh-huh.
avoidant,
Yes.
and fearful-avoidant, sometimes also called disorganized.
Yeah. So to really get where these styles come from, we kind of have to go back to the work of John Bowlby, who was like the pioneer of attachment theory back in the 1950s.
Okay.
He really believed that the early bond between a child and their primary caregiver, that is crucial, super important for their emotional development and even their future relationships.
And then didn't Mary Ainsworth kind of take that idea and run with it with her strange situation study in the 1970s?
Exactly.
I have to admit, I've seen, like, videos of that study with the toddlers
Oh, yeah.
and, like, the separation and reunion with their moms.
Yeah.
And so
This
fascinating,
is so interesting.
but also kind of heartbreaking.
Oh, it is. But the study was like groundbreaking, truly, because it showed these very distinct patterns in how babies react to these types of situations.
Okay.
And that led to the identification of the 4 attachment styles that we're talking about today.
So basically, these tiny humans are already showing us, like, their relationship playbook.
Pretty much.
And those patterns can, stick with us, like, way into adulthood.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how important those early experiences really are.
Absolutely. It really does affect, not just how we love, but also who we're attracted to, how we handle conflict. Like, for example, someone who has a secure attachment style,
Mm-hmm.
they might be very comfortable, like, just directly expressing their needs.
Right.
Whereas someone with an avoidant style might just, like, shut down or withdraw when things start to feel, really emotionally intense.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's break these attachment styles down one by one,
Okay.
starting with the one that everyone seems to think is, like, the best, secure attachment.
Yes, the gold standard.
So what makes this style so, I don't know, so special?
Well, research shows that people who are securely attached, they just tend to have these more satisfying and stable relationships. They're comfortable with intimacy, but they also value their independence.
So it's like finding that balance between closeness and being, independent.
Exactly.
But I feel like some people might hear secure attachment and they're like, boring. Like, I need a little spice, a little drama in my life.
It's true. It's true. I mean, for some, the stability of a secure relationship might just feel a little too,
Vanilla.
right, vanilla. But, secure people don't completely avoid conflict. They approach it in a different way
Right.
with open communication and a willingness to, like, work through things together.
So it's not like they're just avoiding all conflict.
Right.
It's that they have the skills to, work through it.
Yeah.
So how does this, like, gold standard of attachment actually develop? I mean, do you have to have, like, a perfect childhood?
It doesn't have to be perfect, but having consistent responsiveness from your caregivers, that plays a huge role. Like, when a child's needs are met regularly and consistently, they learn to trust that, like, okay, the world is generally a safe place and my needs deserve to be met.
Okay.
And this creates, like, a really strong foundation of security that they can then carry with them into their adult relationships.
Okay, so let's move on to anxious attachment. This is, I'm picturing, like, the late night, are you there texts and constantly needing reassurance from their partner.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like, a fair representation?
Everybody's different, but those behaviors can definitely be, like, red flags for anxious attachment. This group tends to really be very invested in their relationships and they crave closeness, but it often comes with, like, this fear of abandonment and this need for constant validation.
Oh, I see. So, like, their partner could be giving them tons of love and attention, but they're still, like, on edge, wondering, is it enough?
Hmm.
Or is it going to go away?
Right. And it can be really exhausting, both for them and for their partner.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
And these anxieties, they often stem from those childhood experiences where a caregiver's love and attention was kind of like inconsistent or unpredictable.
Oh, wow.
So that inconsistency creates this like deep-seated fear of being like left, abandoned, or not being loved enough.
So it's like the brain is constantly asking, do you really love me? Will you leave?
Yeah,
Even when there's nothing to suggest that.
exactly. And those fears can lead to behaviors that, while they're meant to get reassurance, they can actually end up pushing their partner away.
Right, right. Okay, so we've got the securely attached people who are good with intimacy, and we've got the anxiously attached folks who crave that closeness,
Hmm.
but they're scared of being abandoned.
Hmm.
Now let's talk about those who seem to avoid intimacy altogether. The avoidant attachment style.
Yes. So people with this style, they really value their independence and self-reliance. They can come across as really emotionally distant, and they might have a hard time expressing their feelings or their needs directly.
And our source mentions ghosting.
Yeah.
Just like disappearing from a relationship. That's like a classic avoidant move.
It is.
That's gotta hurt.
It does. But it's important to keep in mind that, that withdrawal isn't necessarily because they don't care. It's often a defense mechanism.
Oh, okay.
Like a way of protecting themselves from those feelings of being overwhelmed by like too much intimacy.
So they might want connection, but they just have a different way of going about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I bet this also goes back to childhood.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine growing up with a caregiver who wasn't really emotionally available or just kind of dismissed your needs.
Right.
You might learn to suppress your own emotions and just rely on yourself because that feels safer than depending on, somebody else.
It's like they build up this wall and it's hard to break through.
Yeah.
But under that, are they maybe like secretly longing for a connection?
I think it's a little more complicated than that. They might have a different idea of what connection means, or they're comfortable with a certain amount of distance.
Right. Yeah. Okay, we've covered secure, anxious, and avoidant. So that leaves us with what our source calls the most complex, fearful avoidant, which is sometimes also called disorganized attachment.
Right.
So what makes this one so tricky?
Well, as the name kind of suggests, it's a mix of wanting closeness, but also fearing it.
Huh.
They have this huge desire for connection, but they're terrified of getting hurt or abandoned. So they're
Uh-huh.
always stuck in this push and pull.
Oh, wow. So what kind of experiences usually lead to this attachment style?
It often stems from early experiences with trauma or inconsistent caregiving.
Okay.
Imagine like a child who experiences love, but also fear, maybe from a parent who's both nurturing, but also frightening.
Oh, right.
That creates this really confusing internal world where they crave love, but they also kind of associate it with danger.
So they want it, but they're also scared of it.
Exactly. And that inner turmoil can really play out in their relationships too.
Oh, yeah.
There might be a lot of back and forth, like hot and cold behavior. They might pull their partner close 1 minute and then push them away the next.
Wow, that's got to be so confusing for everyone involved. But, this is a good example of how understanding these attachment styles can help us understand some of those confusing things that happen in relationships.
Absolutely. And it all leads us to the big question. Can we change our attachment style? Can we break free from these patterns that were, established so early in life?
Yeah.
That's what we'll explore next.
Okay.
Let's dig into that.
Sounds good.
So, can we change our attachment style? It's like the million-dollar question, right?
Right. And like our source says, some experts think that, attachment styles are just so deeply rooted in childhood that they're really, really hard to change. Like, are we just stuck repeating the same things over and over again?
It can definitely feel that way sometimes, especially when you see it happening,
Right, right.
But the good news is that there's a growing amount of research that says, change is possible. It's not going to be easy. But if you're aware of it and you put the effort in, you can create new, healthier ways of relating.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're trying to erase our past. It's more about like learning some new skills, new strategies for navigating relationships, in a way that feels better.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, think of your attachment style as like a path in the woods.
Okay.
It's the one you've always taken, the one that feels familiar, right?
Right, right.
But if you really want to, you can create new pathways. You can find new ways to get where you want to go.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So where do we even start creating those new pathways? Like, what are some things we can actually do to move towards a more secure attachment style?
Self-awareness is huge. You
Yeah.
got to recognize your own attachment style, and understand how it might be affecting your behavior in relationships.
Oh.
Once you see those patterns, you can start to challenge them.
So, like, if I notice I get really anxious when my partner doesn't text back right away, or I'm always asking for reassurance,
Yeah.
that's a sign I might have some anxious attachment stuff going on.
Exactly. And instead of letting those anxieties run the show,
Yeah.
you can start to develop new coping skills like our source talks about learning to self-soothe
Okay.
instead of always needing your partner to, manage your emotions.
So instead of firing off that, where are you? Are you
Right.
mad at me? Text. Maybe I take some deep breaths, do some journaling, or call a friend for support.
Exactly. It's about building your own sense of inner security,
Okay.
and learning how to handle those tough emotions without always needing someone else to validate you.
So self-awareness, self-soothing.
Yeah.
What else can we do to become more secure?
Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries.
Oh, yeah. Boundaries are important.
Super important, especially if you tend towards, anxious or fearful avoidant attachment.
Right.
Learning to communicate what you need in a clear and respectful way and knowing when to step back and protect yourself, that's essential.
So it's like being open, but also knowing how to protect yourself. It's like a dance.
It is. It takes practice. But the more you practice setting those healthy boundaries, the more confident and secure you'll feel in your relationships.
Okay, that makes sense. And, speaking of relationships, I feel like who we choose as a partner can also play a big role in either, like, keeping those old patterns going or helping us break free.
Oh, 100%. Our source talks about choosing partners who are supportive, who encourage growth and security,
Right.
not the ones who trigger our insecurities, or just reinforce those unhealthy dynamics.
So, like, if I'm someone who's anxiously attached, I probably want to be careful about, like, not falling for someone who's avoidant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that can become such a vicious cycle. One person chasing, the other one withdrawing,
Right.
which just makes those fears of abandonment even worse.
It's amazing how knowing about these attachment styles can help us understand, like, so many of those patterns that we see in relationships. It's like a secret decoder ring for love.
I love that. It really does help us make sense of why we're drawn to certain people, why we act the way we do in relationships, and ultimately how to create those connections that are healthier and more fulfilling.
It really is empowering to realize that we're not just, like, stuck with these patterns. Change is possible. It takes effort. It takes awareness, getting out of that comfort zone a little bit.
It does, but it's so worth it.
It is. And it's not about being perfect, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we all have those moments where the old stuff comes up again.
Yeah, sure.
It's about noticing it, being kind to ourselves, and just choosing to do something different when we can.
I love that. And even if you're lucky enough to have a secure attachment style, you can still help others heal and grow.
Oh, that's true.
Sometimes just being a loving and consistent presence in someone's life can make a huge difference.
So whether you're trying to work on your own attachment stuff or you want to be there for someone you love, remember, knowledge is power.
Yes.
And with that knowledge, we can create a world where, love and connection can really thrive.
Could have said it better myself.
So as we're kind of wrapping up this exploration of attachment styles, we want to bring it back to you, our wonderful listeners.
Yes.
Take a minute and think about what we've talked about today.
Think about your own experiences in relationships. Romantic ones, friendships, all of them.
Right, all of them.
Do any of these attachment styles sound familiar? Can you see those patterns playing out in your own life?
And this isn't about judging ourselves. It's about awareness and growth. Recognizing your own attachment style is a big step towards understanding why you might react certain ways in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
It can help you make better choices going forward.
It's like our source says. It's like having a cheat code for relationships. Once you understand those patterns, you can start to decode those moments that used to leave you confused, and you can navigate your relationships with more intention.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone in this. We all have our own attachment styles and our own relationship stuff. The key is to be kind to ourselves, be understanding of others, and just be open to learning and growing.
Beautifully said.
And it's amazing how much those early experiences can shape our adult relationships. Like, it really highlights the power of those early bonds. But it also reminds us that we're not, like, permanently defined by our past.
Exactly. With effort and self-awareness, we can create more fulfilling and secure connections.
And even if you haven't had the best experiences in the past, there's still hope for change and growth. It's never too late to start creating healthier patterns.
Absolutely.
So if you're interested in learning more about this topic, definitely check out our source, Understanding Attachment Styles, How We Love. It's a fantastic resource with lots of practical tips.
Yeah, it's a great read.
And of course, if you're feeling stuck or you just want some personalized guidance, don't be afraid to reach out to a therapist. They can provide support and give you some tools to help you work through those old wounds and develop more secure ways of relating.
Absolutely. There's no shame in asking for help.
None at all. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of attachment styles, we want to leave you with this thought. Change is possible. Your past doesn't have to define your future relationships. With awareness, effort, and a little bit of self-compassion, you can create the loving connections you deserve.
So well said.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep loving.